All right. Good morning. I hope everybody had a fantastic last week. And yeah, good morning. Um, yeah, I had a pretty good weekend. I hope this is okay that we had it today instead of yesterday. I was out of town since we did our like family Christmas from like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So just got back late last night, but I tried to stay up on the news as best as I could. So hope it's okay. We have it on Monday here. Tomorrow or next week, we will have it on Sunday like we've been doing. So I will be posting that video later today, maybe tomorrow, and we'll get so you guys can see it on the schedule. That also being said, I'm thinking about doing a New Year's live stream. Wanted ideas for what you guys would love to hang out with doing. I want to do something. I just want to do something. We could do a hacking stream because we haven't done one of those for a while. So that's what I was kind of thinking of. But we could do something else as well. So just let me know if you have an idea of something you'd like to hang out on stream, and do. All right. As always, all opinions expressed here are those of my own. I'm not paid by anybody. And haven't been asked by anybody, past, present, or future employers. Nobody's asked me to say anything. Everything I'm saying is that of my own. So let's get into it. As usual, we're going to start with security. We're going to jump onto cloud news. We're going to do some state of the web. And then we're going to wrap up with interesting instead of open source, well, actually, a lot of these are open source, but instead of open source today, we're going to do interesting advent of code solutions for those. And actually, I've been inspired to learn English better, but also inspired. I think I have something I want to do for an Advent of Code Day 1 challenge. Maybe even Day 2. Maybe next year we'll do it as many days as we can actually do it. I'll learn something doing it, but I'll get into more of that towards the end when we're looking at these other people's Advent of Code. And I think next year we'll try to do it for at least one day. All right, let's jump into this news. All right. This one I didn't understand this one very much. Probably my problem. But there was this new covert channel to exfiltrate data on air-gapped computers. One second. Exfiltrate. There we go. Got the word. All right. So this one I didn't understand why it was as cool as it was. Like there was, I read a couple things on this COVID bit. This was the shortest, easiest, but like basically it leverages malware planted on the machine. Oh, okay. So it leverages malware that's on the machine. So you have to have physically installed this thing first, which in my mind kind of ruins some of it. And basically it leverages that malware to then communicate data from an air-gapped machine. And that data doesn't have to have something because it does something with memory or whatnot to make the electromagnetic or the radio waves that go out to about 2 meters. So it is still pretty cool, but you have to have like physical access to that machine in the first place with like a USB drive or some other mechanism. So anyways, yeah. It's still pretty cool though, because it leverages. No, 1 second. I want to say it was memory, dynamic power consumptions, and manipulating the monetary loads of the CPU cores. So it's the CPU cores. I don't know why I was thinking memory, but the CPU cores. Anyways, pretty cool still. I wish I was that smart. I'm not. Kali Linux adds 6 new tools, Azure Image, and desktop updates. I actually did pull the new image. I haven't actually gotten to use it yet. So, problem is, I downloaded it. It's stored. I haven't actually installed Linux on this machine yet. That's like still in the works so that I can do live streaming on Linux with this new machine. It's still just running Windows. I'm sorry. Actually, it really hasn't been horrible with WSL. It's really actually been pretty nice, but I do need to get to installing Linux so we can have i3, so we can have a fantastic programming stream. I feel like I just can't program without i3. Yeah. So check it out if you're into security. I think Kali Linux is pretty much the go-to open source Linux distribution for hacking. I'm not a hacker though, so don't take my word for that. It's the one I go to. Hackers hijacked a Linux devices using proot isolated file system. So this was interesting. There's a couple articles. If you want to jump in the Discord, can't find them, I can give you some more articles on it. So proot is an open source utility that combines the troot and mount bind. So basically, it just allows you to use. It combines a few little things that are already out there, and it's kind of like containers. It's like a softer containers. Troot was like the grandfather of the modern container. It's process isolation. So this is by a company, Sysdig. You all should know Sysdig. Sysdig is a pretty cool Kubernetes security company. Anyways, proot was being used to deploy malicious file systems on already compromised systems. So it was being used to kind of isolate malicious file systems on systems. So yeah, it was pretty cool that they were using like a security construct to hide their stuff. It's almost like running your malicious code and stuff in a container. Not that Russell would know anything about hiding malicious stuff in a container. Not at all. All right. So anyways, I thought this was pretty cool. Sysdig, they made Project Falco, which is pretty cool for runtime security scanning of your Kubernetes clusters, and they donated that to the CNCF. If you don't know who they are. Because your clusters are the worst. That's why you're getting called out. That's why you're getting called out. That's exactly why. Chinese hackers use Russo-Ukrainian war decoys to target APAC and European entities. This is like a call to be ever vigilant. Diligent. I think I tried to combine vigilant with diligent. That needs to be a word. Diligently diligent. That's a new word we're working on. So, anyways, be vigilantly diligent in your security. Understand that stuff that's happening in Ukraine could be leveraged to use other places. So be on the lookout for that. On the good news, I saw this. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I did watch some of it on new encryption systems. I think this is actually really needed. And this isn't just about like, with quantum computers on the horizon, we need a new encryption system. I think the NSA has already had sufficient ways to get around our encryption quickly if it needs to. I'm not saying that your everyday person can, but I've been getting the feeling as of lately that our encryption and our bank encryption standard as it isn't good enough. So I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully they open source it because that way more people can use it. Yeah, because security is really important. So, yeah. Anybody else see anything else in security? Any other large hacks that happened? We're going to talk about the AWS outage, which is kind of security because availability is part of security. But this time I put it in with AWS. So we'll talk about it with AWS. I think I did, but I don't see it now. AWS did have an outage. That might just randomly pop up in our news. All right. Well, if nobody else had anything for security, anything that came up, we'll jump into we're going to start with Azure because I think I haven't started with Azure for a little while. So I'm starting with Azure. I tried to switch it up. All right, let's see. Azure. That's too small. All right, Azure. Azure API Management is Microsoft's solution for securely creating and managing modern APIs at scale. I do believe that this should have been creating and managing. But I'm really bad at English, so they're probably correct. It also provides advanced tools for building and maintaining APIs, such as OpenAPI. Okay, anyways. Community support for Azure Functions proxies will end on September 30th. I don't understand this. I'm actually asking for all of you Azure people, how does Azure get to decide when the community stops supporting something? Usually the community is the community and they have their own free will. This seemed like a weird statement to me. Again, Azure is my least good. I have been learning Azure along with you all, and so I'm learning a little bit more about Azure, but it's my least knowledgeable cloud, so this one seemed a little weird to me. Now, this is September of 2025, so you have a little bit longer. They're forcing the community to support it for a couple more years. I don't get it. But, all right, public preview, new in-memory optimized VM sizes. Azure has some of the most confusing VM names. The E96BSV5 and the E112IBSV5. Yeah. Anyways, these are for much higher memory. So if you have really high memory workloads, which a lot of companies do, these are really optimized for those in-memory workloads. These can be anything from caches, which you could do like an all in-memory Redis cache, which would be more expensive than like a hybrid memory Aerospike cache, which performs just as well. But and yeah, was not paid to say that. That's just a matter of fact. But it also, there's a lot of other things that can leverage memory from queues and other things. So a lot of queues, though, or meshing systems are also backed by physical drives, although they use leverage memory for being fast. So if you have a memory workload, want to scale it on systems designed for memory, Azure has more systems now. Processor diagram in physical job diagram for stream analysis, job troubleshooting. This looked really interesting to me. I love things that bring out, I almost said physical representation, but they bring things out in like a high level for debugging, especially of your cloud systems. It can get really, really confusing. And this looks really interesting to help solve debugging issues with more complicated flows with a high-level diagram. So they improved their speech-to-text accuracy with Azure. So they have some pretty interesting machine learning models for you to leverage, and they improved their text accuracy. So if you were leveraging that in the past or present, you should start to see more accurate results. Microsoft, an insolvent partner to bring next generation eBPF data plane for cloud native applications in Azure. So eBPF is kind of like the hot new security thing, maybe over leveraged. I feel like we always get on these bandwagons where we're like, oh, this person did this really cool thing with eBPF, and now we have to do things with eBPF, and we do everything with eBPF, and it's terrible. But I do like eBPF. I do like the things that we've seen with Cilium. So they're bringing Cilium to Azure Kubernetes service, so the AKS. So yeah, The partnership with Insolvent is going to bring Cilium's eBPF. Cilium is a fantastic networking tool. This is kind of the thing that brought eBPF, popularized it, and it's really powerful. A couple years ago, I said that Cilium was probably the next gen networking, but it was a little ahead of its time. I think it's starting to become its time. I've seen a lot of really good things with it, so I think now is maybe the time to start adopting it. I still run Calico myself, as I found it easier to run on a home network. But yeah. So this is cool. Super cool. Microsoft cost management updates. So they brought in some new things to help you do cost management. I know that's a lot on teams' minds right now, and a lot of teams are being asked to do that. So this is really cool to see this come out in a time when teams are probably struggling to make this a reality. So that being said, it's cool to see come out. If you're running in Azure, they have updates that make it easier. They have quite a few. So from tagging and other management, team management consoles and other things like that. So go ahead and check this out if you're interested in that. And lastly, any developer can be a space developer with a new Azure Orbital Space SDK. That sounds really cool, but it doesn't really make me a space developer, even if I use their SDK. That's what I found out. I was like, I'm now a space developer. I made something using the SDK, and nobody will run it on their satellites because it's garbage. But this is actually pretty cool. Running on satellites brings some pretty interesting problems with orchestration and things like that. And anyways, if you're wanting to look into this, this is actually pretty interesting. It's a pretty interesting project, pretty interesting scope, and I'm kind of waiting for Azure to kind of bring what the words are hard this morning, to bring like a space as a service. That would still be SaaS. It'd still be a SaaS platform that's serving SaaS. Space as a service is a software as a service. Anyways, where you can run on their satellites. But anyways, they have some partnerships. They have some cool things going with this. If this is interesting to you, it's interesting to me. I don't have the time to leverage it, but better spyware incoming. Oh no. Okay, well, there goes that. There goes that idea. So, anyways, yep, spyware as a service now as well, also a SaaS. Last Microsoft thing here is that Microsoft is acquiring a startup to develop high-speed cables for transmitting data. There's a lot of these around this. Actually, these are unsung heroes of the internet, of these cable networks that are under the ocean and deployed under the ocean. We actually saw, if you joined me for the news earlier, we saw how some of these disrupted like internet in France and some other islands around England, as some of them were cut. Cloud was so 2022. We are all in low orbit now. Yeah, absolutely. Space is the next new hot platform, not clouds. It's like we need a space station, not a new cloud. You know what, DigitalOcean? What's bigger than the ocean? Space. It's also a lot of nothing, so maybe that's not a great analogy. Anyways, so they acquired a startup to do that. I know Google has really been pushing laying these like transatlantic cables and Pacific cables to connect the world, and that's how we get such fast times between places. Super cool. I'm kind of interested in seeing what they come up with it. Yeah. Interestingly enough, my mother always thought that it was satellites. That's how like the world was connected, and I was like, nope, it's cables. It's cables underneath the in the laying on the ocean, being attacked by sharks. That's actually a true story. All right, we'll jump on to Google News. All right. PubSub Group Kafka Connector now GA, a drop-in solution for data movement. So this is kind of Google trying to woo over Kafka people to their PubSub. So they're like, don't use PubSub. Or no, they're like, don't use Kafka, use PubSub. For all of you that don't know, PubSub is the name of their PubSub solution, a publisher subscriber solution. I really dislike it as a name. That's like saying my VM solution is called VM, and you can't pick the generic name and then make that your name. And it's not just for like trademark reasons. I don't give a crap about the trademark. The problem is it's just confusing about what I'm talking about when I'm talking about PubSub and a person who is familiar with GCP. Am I talking about the generic solution of PubSub, or am I talking about Google Clouds? Now, maybe that was their design, but to me, it's more infuriating than anything else that I have to explain whether I'm talking about PubSub of Google or the generic solution of a publisher and subscriber. That's more infuriating to me than it is anything else. That being said, sorry for that rant. It should help you if you're trying to move from PubSub from Kafka to PubSub. They have an example for the Java PubSub. So this is like a demo of how you can move over to it. And yeah, it's in Maven Central, and it's Java. If you don't want Java, stop using Java. All right, 12 no-cost ways to learn Google Cloud over the holidays. This is cool. I touched base on this earlier this week or last week, and they've added more to it. So they have ML, AI, CI/CD, and a couple other cloud certifications that are zero cost for you to go. So if you're trying to get out there and learn, sorry, I'll make this larger, my bad. If you're trying to get out there and learn some of these things, then I highly recommend this. This is really awesome that they're doing this. I actually might take some of these ML ones because I've been dabbling in it myself, and I need somebody to set me on the straight and narrow because I have definitely done some weird things with AI that should never have been done. All right, trust update from the Google company that says do no evil. Oh, wait, they don't say that anymore. Cybersecurity Action Team. So this came out, and I really do like these. Sorry, I was making fun of them for kind of going down a slippery slope, but they did come out with this good update and talking about their compliance from their security team and some of the things that they're doing. It's not super in-depth. This is not a Cloudflare in-depth article, but it was a good step. Good first step. How to reduce microservices complexity with Apogee and Anthos Service Mesh. Now, I have always said, the true solution to the problem of microservices being too hard and too difficult is to add more complexity into your system. This is hands down the easiest and best way to handle it. Is you take a already hard and complex problem and you add more complexity in on top, and through it's like the really bad movies. When the movie gets bad enough, it actually gets good. You know, there's bad movies that aren't that bad, but they're bad enough that they're just bad movies. And nobody likes watching those. But you get bad enough. You get a movie directed by me, and it becomes good all of a sudden. All of a sudden, so you just pile on complexity. This is Google's solution. Pile on that complexity, and you're about to get an easy solution. Now, that being said, I do make fun of it a little bit because Apogee, I call it Apogee. It's like the API-G. I know like they're going on it. I don't know. Probably super wrong in calling it Apogee. I still just I can't help it. I call it Apogee. I know it's wrong too. Okay. That being said, I make fun of this, but if you are solely on GCP, these are not bad. Now, it kind of is a oxymoron to me here because Anthos is kind of their thing that says, hey, you can run on any Kubernetes cluster. But Apogee, as far as I know, is only on GCP. So like this combination kind of contradicts that. But if you're looking at running on GCP and paying to GCP and having a full integration with them, this might actually be a simpler solution because basically Anthos is a managed and a slightly more featureful Istio. And so if you take out the complexity of managing Istio, it's not that bad. It's actually pretty good. Hey there, Jubril. How are you doing? Istio is super powerful. It's just really hard to run and manage and know what you're doing. And so this might actually provide you a little bit of simplicity, although I warn you, configuring these can still be difficult. Just because they manage the solution for you doesn't mean that configuring it is easy. You still have to configure it correctly. All right, let's jump on to AWS, unless if somebody else has something to add to our GCP. Oh, do you like the new shirt? Nobody was getting the pointer. Like, I did a null pointer because I found it hilarious. I was like, this is a null pointer, but it's like a finger pointing. And everybody was like, what is that? And I was like, a null pointer. And they're like, oh, okay, I get it now. So maybe it's just my artistic ability, but this I thought was a little bit more clear. It's a null pointer. I think it's hilarious. I made the shirt because I think it's hilarious. I'm not going to try to sell it to anybody, but since you've asked, I will put a link to it. I make like $5 if you buy it. I find it hilarious. It's a null pointer. No pressure. But yeah, anyways, yeah, I hope you like it. I like wearing these shirts because I'm always afraid of wearing like some brand shirt in a video that I make because technically you don't buy the license to make videos with that person's thing. So I try to have unbranded stuff in videos. Or I just wear something I myself made. So that's what is happening this morning. And I made it because I found it funny. All right, Amazon Kinesis Data Firehose now delivers to logs.io. So if you're using logs.io and you're using Amazon Kinesis Data Firehose, it now supports streaming data directly to logs.io. So if you're using Logstack, using logs.io, you're more than welcome to now stream between the two. Kind of cool. Amazon ECS Service Connect now supports AWS Fargate on AWS Graviton processors. So again, bringing more stuff to Graviton, really cool, really awesome. This is going to help you do cost reduction. Anything you can move to Graviton is probably a win. And maybe that's what we do our live stream. I asked you guys for live stream ideas. That's another great live stream idea for January, is like playing around with what can and can't be a graviton. I know I have a whole video I'm working on for that. And if we do that as a live stream, you're going to be part of my research. But yeah, we could definitely do that. Announcing global free tier pricing rules for AWS Billing Conductor. We talked about Billing Conductor a couple months ago. Starting today, customers can now disable always free tier offers when creating a global pricing rule in Billing Conductor. AWS Billing Conductor is ABC. I didn't realize that until just now. All right, pricing rules with free tier disabled allow customers default to the first paid tier for all AWS services. So basically, yeah, there you go. It's pretty cool. Last thing for AWS was something I missed in reInvent, which was kind of cool. They did this. They basically have this sim space and uCrowd's city demo. Basically, they were recreating and simulating large cities. And they used, I believe they said that they used Unreal Engine as far as the thing that rendered the 3D. And then basically they scaled it to different you can go back here and basically, let's see, right about here. Yeah, there's each sim was done by a different server, but they were able to tie and mesh those Unreal servers together, allowing them to scale up to effectively an infinite number of servers. And they were able to, with this, simulate 1 million people. And then they put 1 million people in Las Vegas and realized that Las Vegas was never designed to hold 1 million people. But they reduced the population and actually found like interesting bottlenecks and ways that Las Vegas could improve the way people flow through Las Vegas. And so this is kind of cool technology. This is some of the stuff that is kind of interesting to see come out, where we could actually use really large, massive scale simulations for things like reInvent, to say, hey, if we're doing reInvent here, what are some of the things? Where are going to be some of the problem points? How are we going to do it? I think this is pretty awesome. So that was another reInvent thing. All right. That was my last AWS thing. We're now on to just some random web news. Actually, I have some CNCF stuff. Absolutely have some CNCF stuff. Working on the video for the release notes. We got another release of Kubernetes released out this last week. So that's cool. 1.26 is out. My release notes are not out. You know, I used to fret like I needed to have the release notes out the day of. And that's also kind of difficult because like that means you know, I have to be before the release cycle so I don't get the final stuff. I'm now doing like the week after. And the reason is it allows me to make sure that I have the final stats of everything that made it in. I know that there's code freeze and things like that, but some of those things are like, no, we have to pull. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I'm not fretting about it. Also because people don't adopt the newest Kubernetes the day of. So like, it doesn't matter. It's going to be at least a couple months. So, all right. So there was some other things though in the CNCF, and then we're going to get to our Advent of Code showcase, and I have an idea for my own Advent of Code next year that we're going to do for at least one day. We're going to try to do it. I'm not even sure I'm smart enough to do it. I might need some help to do it but it will be awesome. All right. This was an article I found interesting on the latest milestones on WebAssembly's road to maturity. I know that a lot of us follow WebAssembly. This was a pretty cool article on WebAssembly and Docker, Java, and Python from the stuff that happened at the CNCF mini survey for WebAssembly. And I know a lot of the people in the CNCF really like WebAssembly, so I am definitely watching out for this. More interesting though, Flux has a new update. So Flux is another GitOps tool like Argo CD, and it's continually improving. So they bring a consolidated Git implementation, which is really cool. And they also updated their roadmap, which is really nice that they actually keep and maintain this roadmap for you to check out, because this actually lets you see the things that are coming. I know that this is really nice from like a business perspective, because I can actually check this and see what is probably going to be available in the near future. So if there's something that's really critical to me, they've done a really good job of keeping this up to date. So you can see like this is their milestone for Helm GA. This is their GitOps GA for Flux for what they're thinking. And so yeah, you can see where they're at, what they're thinking about. And yeah, so pretty cool. Nice job. The Cloud Native Computing Foundation announces Argo has graduated. So Argo CD, Argo workflows, all part of the CNCF. That's the counterpart to Flux in some regards, but not all regards. I think it's actually a big confusion. People think of Argo CD, and that's all. But Argo is so much more than that. It's a family of things. Argo CD is built on top of Argo workflows. You can use Argo workflows without using Argo CD. If you don't do GitOps, but still want a workflow pipeline, and you want that really awesome, sweet diagram, it's still a very viable option. Now, so is Netflix's Conductor. Yeah, Conductor. I think it's called Conductor. One second. Let me Google that really quickly. Yeah. Of course I was correct in calling that out. Conductor is also a workflow orchestrator. But we're not talking about that. But it's really cool that Netflix actually released this. I appreciate that they did that. But right now, we're talking about Argo. Argo has graduated, which means it's reached a certain level of maturity. One of the biggest things that this means in the CNCF, and I think the thing that I'd like to focus on most, is that this means it's gone through a security review. It means that security has checked it, has looked at it, and said that it meets a minimum requirement for security. And that's fantastic. To actually have that detailed security review, you can look at this project, you can use it with a little bit more assurance that the code itself is fairly secure. It doesn't mean that it's not going to have a CVE that comes out on it. It just means that it meets a minimum standard, and that's still really fantastic. So yeah, to graduate, Argo met the rigorous standards required of a mature and stable project, including a clear governance and committer process, healthy growth and adoption, and high standards for security and compliance. So, nice work, Argo team. All right, so now the next thing that we have to talk about is some no-code solutions to coding. Oh, wait a second. I knew I had an article about AWS outage. Anyhow, it was an outage for an hour and a half. Sorry about that. That should have been in with the AWS stuff. There was a US East 2, I believe it was. One second, US East 2 region had an hour and a half outage. So if you were in the US East 2 region, yeah, sorry you had a rough day. I always know that when there's a major outage in AWS, I have a rough day. It's a rough day. It's a rough day for everybody. Never fun. 75 minutes. I said an hour and a half. That's really only an hour and 15 minutes, but it feels like at least 4 hours. And we go off feelings here. So, yeah. All right. So let's talk about low code. I actually think low code is the future of software. And you know that I also hate low code solutions. So there goes that. I both hate it and think that it's the future. So you think about your business person, and they do like Excel spreadsheets, and Excel spreadsheets are horrible, absolutely horrible. But they really, if you can do a low code solution that is that powerful, that enables somebody that's going to do those spreadsheets to do something a little bit more powerful, that's super powerful for a business. And I'm not saying that your next social media is going to be on a low code solution. That's not what I mean by it's the future. But I mean, if you're going to take software programming and the things that we can do and the types of things that we can achieve to the standard business, you're going to make it approachable by these low code or no code solutions. I'm not saying I know which solution is the right solution. I haven't actually appreciated a lot of the solutions, but I do believe that that is what you're looking at. You're looking at the next Excel. You're looking at the next data processing from somebody who just wants to manipulate and look at the data. And that's really cool. Again, that's not where software engineering is going, I don't think. I think software engineering, I think that it's actually easier to actually write the code if you know how to do it, and it's easier to maintain and review and whatnot. So I think big, complicated systems are always going to be written in code because it makes more sense. But I think these low code and no codes are really important. That being said, Airtable, last valued at 11 billion for its 11 billion for its no-code software. It lays off over 250 people. So the layoffs continue. They said that they have, but the really interesting thing here was that they have money, and they were kind of saying that this layoff was more like a restructuring, more than they needed to lay off people. And they seem to say that they had enough money to become profitable. Yeah, they raised $735 million in 2021. That's a lot of money to raise. Anyways, so that's happening. I found another one, Roy, which was interesting. This is a low code for Firebase and GCP. This is some of the problems I find with low code is they're like, yeah, it works exactly on Firebase and GCP. Nothing else. Have fun with that. They work really well, but they're also somewhat limiting. So anyways, let's move on to something more interesting. C++ overtakes Java in language popularity index. I don't know if this is real or not. I feel like this is false. I love C++. Is C and C++ really people's second and third? I understand that there's a lot of misguided people that love Python. I get that. But is there this many misguided people? We're talking about 43% of the population is misguided. One second. Really, would have to say 54% of the population is misguided? Visual Basic job, I don't know. I feel like this is fake news. That PHP, this cannot be real. I'm moving on. IBM acquired another company so that they could kill it. So if you liked Octo, have fun using it for another year or two. Clara.io is closing down. I never did 3D model. I'm not an artist at all. I'm a little sad about this one though. So this was a browser-based 3D modeling. I love browser-based stuff, honestly. A lot of it doesn't work as well as native, but I like the people that try to do this stuff in the browser so you don't have to install something. And this was a cool attempt at it. I have actually used this in the past, but it's closing down. So yeah. All right, super excited about this. I have been using, so like my lights that aren't currently on because I haven't had the time to rearrange and set everything up. Uses small computers, and Pine, a company I love, is coming out with new ones. So these are $6 and $8. Currently out of stock. I wish I had snagged some. They were out of stock like a day after they were released. Definitely going to grab some of these because these are awesome. Why are they awesome? Why are the O64 awesome? Well, look at this. It's a RISC 64-bit processor. This is a RISC. This is RISC-V right here. Doesn't get better than this. And it's so cheap. So cheap. So I want to get some. We're going to play around with them because I need to. I absolutely need to. Yeah, it does get bought super quickly. You know what I really dislike as well? I can't enter a waiting list. So Pine, if you're listening to me, you need to have a waiting list because this means that people with bots are the winners. Because you make it so that I have to use a bot to actually win in your picking. You need to have it where you get on a waiting list, and you can get 2 per person or 1 per person or something like that. Because this is maybe it's not bots, but I was like the second day after it was released, I was on there and you were all sold out. Maybe it's not bots, but it's probably bots. Just going to throw that out there. And I know it's not Pine's fault. A lot of people with bots, but yeah. I saw this. I haven't been able to verify this, but Amazon will now pay you $2 monthly reward to monitor all your device traffic. That sounds horrifying. Please don't do this. $2. Not worth it. Yeah, I'm completely good with a pre-order. I would have pre-ordered it if that was helping to fund with the manufacturing. I know that they're a small little group. Pre-orders, waiting list, happy to do it. I would have been on the pre-orders, would have been on the waiting list. As it is, it just feels like I actually have to make a bot to do Pine stuff. And I don't actually want to do that because I really dislike that mentality and I don't like being part of the problem. Like, because if I make a bot because I actually want to buy their stuff, I'm just making the problem worse. I'm actually just making that whole thing worse. Now, again, maybe it wasn't. Maybe they only made a limited edition. Like, maybe they only made a couple thousand and they literally just sold out that quickly. And I'm happy for them, but I don't know. We need to rethink how we sell stuff in the world of bots, is all I'm saying. All right. As I was saying, don't do this. Amazon will pay you $2 monthly reward to monitor all. This is like you enable a VPN to their server, and so all your traffic goes through them. This, I mean, $2 a month per device? I don't know. That seems ridiculous. Somebody else said that they'll pay you more to scan your receipts. This seems ridiculous to me. I don't know. I couldn't actually find if this was real life or not. So I don't know if it's real news or fake news. Hopefully it's fake news. This is real news, though. Stack Overflow bans the chat GDP as harmful. It's harmful for coding issues. So the problem with chat GPT, the problem with it is it spits out a bunch of things that are so close to being right but are wrong. And it actually takes a skilled person that actually could answer the problem without ChatGPT to tell you if it's right or wrong. And that's actually a real problem for some place like Stack Overflow, because the answer could be accepted as correct until somebody that really understood could point it out. And so it's actually wrong a lot of times. This is what I found. I know that everybody keeps pointing at these code things, and I think that they're really useful tools for somebody that actually understands, that somebody that actually already knows the problem and actually knows how to solve the problem already. It's not there, even GitHub Copilot isn't there to solve the problem for you. I know some people do it that way, but where I found it actually useful is if you already know how to solve the problem, and it can accelerate you running through and solving the problem. I find if you don't do that, though, there's going to be a small thing where it's like, oh, it iterated backwards over the loop instead of forward over the loop, and things like that, and that's where it gets problematic. You have to know the solution, or else it's going to give you a really nasty bug, a bug that looks right in every regard. And if you weren't careful when writing that 1,000 lines of code, it's going to be hard to track down. Anyways, and that's what Stack Overflow found out. And because of that, they've banned it. And they've banned all AI generated answers for the time being. Found this article. I felt like getting people stirred up a little bit, getting a little fire in our souls. Proof of work is the only viable form of consensus. Now, this is obviously a clickbait title. This person obviously knows how to get the clicks, but they're also wrong. Now, I know where they're going with that. Proof of stake is their main argument of proof of stake doesn't work because proof of stake is mostly a Ponzi scheme, because if you're looking at things like Ethereum that were pre-mined of around 20%, which means the original owners own 20% of it before they let anybody else get to it, which is pretty common. It centralizes it. Where in their opinion, Bitcoin, the whole problem is none of it works as is. None of it works as is, and that's the real problem. Anyways, it was still a fairly decent opinion piece. Although I would say that Raft and things like Raft have worked for a long time for consensus, so stating that proof of work is the only form of consensus is just wrong if you're talking about untrusted consensus, but you would need to know more about consensus than this person does. So let's move on. The last bit of regrettable news is the open software host FossHost is shutting down as the CEO is unreachable. I've been possibly looking at like what it is to start up a not-for-profit company and what you need to do. One of the things that you really need to do is not have a single source of failure. I don't know. Hopefully the CEO is fine. Like worst case, this guy's in a hospital somewhere. But I guess he hasn't been reachable for 6 months, and he's the only person that has access to the bank accounts to pay for the hardware. And so nobody is able to actually continue paying for it. And that's a shame. A lot of places actually started using this for their hosting. So I don't remember exactly. Yeah, here's like the GNOME project, Armbian, Debian, and the Free Software Foundation of Europe. We're all using them. So this is a lot of work for these projects to shift, which is a shame. And it's a shame that there was a single point of failure. I do hope that the person is okay. But it will be reaching end of life because they're not reachable. So if you were using FossHost, it's time to stop using FossHost. The servers have become unresponsive in a lot of places. All right, let's talk about advent of code, I have an idea for next year, partially based off of one of these. I can't do it this year, but do you guys know who Ben Eater is? Do you guys know who Ben Eater is? If you don't, you should watch some of his stuff. Ben Eater is this fantastic YouTuber, much better than myself, who built an 8-bit computer all on breadboards. It was fantastic stuff. I forced my children to watch it. They said they hated me for many weeks after this, but I know that they will learn to appreciate what I put them through. Anyways, you can watch it. He wires all of this up with a clock, with a whatnot. And I have an idea. I am not that good with these, and I have always been wanting to learn. So next year, day one, Advent of Code, we are going to try to use logic gates on a physical PCB to solve Advent of Code. This was based off of this right here. Day one solution of Factorio. Basically, they use Factorio to do Advent of Code day one. And this is really cool. They used a clock, and this is all what you could do on a physical PCB. So that's what I'm going to try to do next year, because I play around with this stuff and I've dabbled and I have logic gates, but I fail to actually leverage them. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to try to do it on PCB. We're going to try to physically solve Advent of Code. I think Ben Eater's last name is Eater. I think that's just his last name. It's like Merrick counts. Does he count? Yes, he does. All the way up to 10. All right. So I think that's what I'm going to do next year for day one. I don't think I'll do more than day one, because I think that day one will probably still make me lose hair and probably take several days to complete, because like I said, it will be a learning experience. But I'm kind of excited about it. All right. That being said, we're going to go over a couple unique Advent of Codes, because next year we'll probably try to do a couple unique Advents of Codes. This one is doing Advent of Code this year with Unity. This was pretty cool. They're like visualizing the sort. This is awesome. This is awesome. Anyways, that was pretty cool. Another one, Advent of Code Day 5, animated and using VimScript. So they did it in VimScript, which is fantastic. If you don't know, that will be interesting. Why do you say it like that, Russell? Do you not like the idea? Do you not like the idea of doing it like physically solving Advent of Code? I thought that was a good idea. I was kind of excited about it, like physically solving it with breadboards. I think that I might fail, but I will try it anyways. I will fail to do it on the first day. Definitely not getting the first entry in. I do believe that I should get bonus points, though, if I solve it physically. So yeah, this person used VimScript and basically visualized solving it inside of Vim. So you can see the sorting up here in this top corner. So yeah, this is them going through and sorting it. Pretty awesome. All in Vim. This person needs to leave Vim. They have not learned how to leave Vim, but they have programmed Vim. In years of being stuck in Vim and not being able to use their computer, they have done many things in Vim. Probably surfs the internet in Vim. This is disgusting. GPT-3 placing first on day 4 using GPT-3. Now, this is effectively what I mean of these things are wrong, but really, really close. If you look, these people, they run 20 attempts in parallel. to running 20 attempts in parallel, to sorting through many solutions to find the likely correct one, to submitting the answer. So the whole thing is, these things aren't that good. They're not as good as some people would like to think. And yeah. Now, I do think that they might ruin things like Advent of Code, because this is all about having fun, all about learning to code. And one of the greatest things about Advent of Code, if you do it correctly, is you learn to write your code in a way that you can go back and rewrite it. The greatest part is that second part, which always makes you like, aha, I wrote the first part in a horrible way, and I have to go back and refactor it. And eventually it forces you to say, how am I going to write this in a way where I don't have to rewrite the whole thing, where I can change it, where it's mutatable, where I can update it in a good way. And that's what I love about it. Also, just, it has a little bit more practicality than Hacker.io, although the later days, maybe not. The later days are rough. This person solved it on a Garmin. That's pretty fantastic. They made a Garmin app. I don't have a Garmin, but maybe I will get something like this to solve it on for next year as well. Maybe we could do one on like one of those Pine boards that I hopefully get. If I get a Pine board and I can like solve it on lights behind me, that would also be cool. Visualize solving it. Yeah, and this person who did it on Factorio. This is cool stuff. Nice work. And that brings us to our topic for next week. I'll tweet it out. I'm going to get better about tweeting. Doing a little tweeting. The controversy. Look. Okay. So, next week, I want to know your favorite open source log aggregation tool. I already have a thread started. In the Discord, if you want to put your favorite log aggregation tool there. We're going to go through open source tools for all things logs. We're going to look at how you log, why you log, and we're going to look at the tools used for that logging, because really good logging makes debugging a later failure so much easier. So go ahead, and you can tweet it at me if you like. That's also fine if you find a tool that you'd really like to share. So, yeah, look, if you take Advent of Code as the competition, the first in and whatnot, there's two ways to look at it. One, you can say, well, don't take it as a competition. I don't, and so it's not as much of a problem for me. It's merely it's not as much of a problem for me. I don't care as much. But I get the people who are looking at not wanting to compete against machines. That being said, the person's solution, they actually wrote code to use ChatGPT or GPT-3 to do it and to solve it, and that was their way of getting the answer the fastest. So honestly, I think you could look at it as that was just an ingenious way to get there a lot faster than anyone else. I don't do it for the competition, so I don't have a beef in this. I would say, though, me personally, I would say that you have two groups of people competing. People who are trying to solve the code themselves, and people who are trying to find the fastest way to use tools to do it. And the two don't compete against each other. It's just not fair. I do it to actually solve it with the code, to become a better programmer, to learn and to develop myself. And because of that, I wouldn't want to use those things because that's not learning and improving myself. Honestly, the people that are using that are doing themselves a disfavor. But I'm also understanding that if you're wanting to do it as part of a competition, then you definitely don't want to be competing against something that can just spit out 20 random solutions. You find the one that actually solves the problem and use that. The other thing that you could do to make this more fair is get penalized for wrong solutions. So if your code, basically they kind of brute force the answer a little bit because they try a bunch of different solutions. So that could also be part of the solution. I don't know. All right. Well, be thinking about a New Year's stream. I don't know exactly when I would start. I was thinking probably sometime around like 8 p.m. my time and going until midnight my time, maybe 2 p.m. or 2 a.m. my time. But think of some of the things that you'd like to do. I would happy to do like a little bit of a hacking stream. I can't hack for that long. My mind will completely melt. Want to do some fun things though. Let's do some fun things. I don't mind doing some hard things for a little bit, but I'm going to need a brain relaxer for some of the other times as well. So, all right. Well, I hope everyone has a fantastic next week. Thank you for joining me for the news and hanging out with me. As always, have yourselves a fantastic week.